Welcome to Echelon Orchid. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford. And on this next episode, we'll be welcoming back a longtime colleague and friend, Miss Julie Holdren. And on this episode, we're going to talk about workplace bullying, how things affected her in the similar situations throughout her career, how she dealt with it, how can she be such a high performer while juggling high-performing family. And we're going to get into some projects that she's working on. So please enjoy the show. Like if you like it, dislike if you don't. Don't forget to subscribe, leave some feedback. I'm looking to get better. I'm looking to be able to provide more content out there and help me to evolve to my future better self. And without further ado, Ms. Julie Holdren. Welcoming back Ms. Julie Holdren to the show. Julie, how are you?
Dan, thank you so much for having me on the show. I am fantastic. How are you today?
I am absolutely amazing, as always. You know, it's been a lot to catch up on. So, you know, I guess first, some of the things that have been, you know, I kind of am reminded a little bit in a past life of ours, because I've been doing some shows and a little bit of research on workplace bullying. And, you know, I know in our past life that has certainly occurred because I got to witness it. But I'm wondering, was that a common thing that you have run into in your career? Was that a one-time thing?
You know, it's interesting you said that, because I was just talking to another colleague of mine, and they were actually kind of reflecting on their management style and recognized that, you know, they didn't actually use the word bullying, but effectively that's what they were doing. To get their way and to short circuit things, they were interrupting, putting forward their own agenda, not taking information in. And so, yes, is it bullying when you're not receptive and taking input so that you get the best ideas on the table, so that you can move forward your project or program or academic career in a way that's meaningful and it's short-sighted? So yes, I think it happens everywhere in all walks of life. And I definitely have witnessed it and been the recipient of it. And you know, often people just get so overwhelmed in their daily activities that they're not able to take input in.
So do you think this has happened more or less to you? And if so, do you think I mean, because you work in a heavily male dominated industry, do you think it has, you know, I would hope not, but do you think it has to do with that? Mean, you know, that you're a woman? Do you think this is more because you're a woman, or do you think it doesn't matter to that workplace bully?
You know, I've been fortunate where I get to work with people who are looking for the best solution and the best problem to solve the problem, like yourself and TK and Jason, like folks that you regularly interact with on this show, and it's a true meritocracy. I am part of a cohort group at the Creators Institute at Georgetown University, writing a book, and I was surprised to find women across the board who are part of this cohort, and the cohort has men and women in it, but women across the board who are stepping out of corporate America in the healthcare field, in management consulting, in technology, all with the same experience. And for them, it's led to burnout. And they are now prolifically writing and posting and blogging and publishing books across it. So I think you're hitting on a really important topic that's the elephant on the table in a lot of environments, and there's very little you can do about it until you leave. And that's so I think there's this whole hangover effect, because the workplace environment was radically impacted by the behaviors that happened during COVID, where people were on video. And so the typical mechanisms by which how people operated changed, and people got the chance to take a step back and say, wait a minute, this is not okay. and are bringing light to it and trying to affect change for the future of their workplace.
What I have found, I don't know that I've really can remember a time that I would have been, so to speak, bullied in the workplace, but I have witnessed it quite often. And it tends to come with those that are in a position higher up in the hierarchy, and they always tend to use their title as, you're going to do this because I'm VP of this or CXO of that. And then you've got the one, but they're sneaky about it. I mean, they're good. They're good at this aspect of being sneaky because they never do it in a way where the audience that matters can see it. So they manage really well up, but not so well down. So
that's a common thread, right? When I was talking to these women in the group thread, which is, it's not, and upper management is too busy to be going down multiple layers. But one thing you do find is there are companies now that put like 360 reviews for managers that are anonymous, then put them in place, right? So there have been attempts, and those also backfire too, right? Because then it makes, the question is, how much does that affect the efficacy of the manager? If you have 4 direct reports and they are blindly surveyed over a 2-week period about how well their manager is doing specific job functions, and the manager is trying to coach them through performance issues, they're obviously going to give the manager a negative review. And if you get a negative review on 25%, you automatically are going to have a negative review as a manager. So it's a tough thing for companies to address. So the real question is, when you come across people, and this is what I'm writing a book about right now. I think you and I have talked about this before. I'm writing a book about women in business, and the new paradigm of the corporate ladder. And one of the things I'm doing is I'm interviewing women in all industries and talking about when they've come up against some kind of adversity and what they did to navigate it, to identify it, and manage their way around it. And it's surprising to me, and I'm in the process of interviewing hundreds of women in primary and secondary interviews, and most of them, the vast majority of them, ended up leaving their positions in order to achieve their career goals.
Did they leave because the environment became too toxic, or what were some of the reasons that you're finding when speaking with these ladies?
And I'm early in my research, but with a common thread I find about all of them is the one thing they'll say to me is, I shut down. I was an awesome VP of marketing. I was an awesome chief revenue officer. And then I just stopped being able to do just my basic skills, which I've had in my career for 20 years. So the first step was I just shut down. So they stopped performing, because in every app, and it's strange because, the professor and Eric, who runs the program, said, you're going to find common threads when you interview people who've had this experience. And the one thing that comes out of their mouth is, I shut down. So what happens is that one of the clear indicators that you're dealing with an ecosystem that doesn't prevent this type of behavior, and bullying is a good example of it, is you actually start questioning your basic skill sets. And you start undermining your own credibility on something you actually know very well. And that's a common thread I've come across in talking to women. And the real question is, what do you do when this happens to you? Like what, and that's what we're working to find out, what were the tools and steps. Most of them ended up taking a step back and pivoting to another organization, or changing their career all around to find something that lined up more with their values. It's a tough situation.
One of the things that I found, especially with these bullies, and which kind of you've hit on, is, they start, these people, and I don't know because I haven't spoken to any of the ladies you spoke to, but I'm imagining that they felt like in many of these instances they were being gaslighted, and that gaslighting starts to mess with your mind because you're like, no, that's not the way it happened, and then you start questioning everything that happened before then, after then, and and so on. And so that questioning of yourself probably meant that they started that's what I imagine. That's when they started to shut down, because like, wait a minute, if this person's saying this, and they're especially in their position higher up in the hierarchy, they start to question, well, maybe, wait a minute, maybe it didn't happen that way, because they're just being bombarded. You got the pressures of life, of the job, of everything around you, and now this, I get it, and it's unfortunate, and this is why I firmly believe in, when leaders need to have the pulse of their people, and yeah, as a CEO, can't go down 5, 6, 7 layers, but this is where they should know. Like they're gonna, I think this comes back down to the CEOs. And even senior executives know when someone's toxic, and they will choose, well, the person's really performing. And therefore they ignore it. They go, well, it's just going to go away. It doesn't go away. It never goes away.
Right. And they have their own agenda. So it's the one thing that all these women said, which is this woman was doing a perfectly good job. She was a chief marketing officer of a venture fund. And then a new executive director came in and he wanted to bring in his own chief marketing officer. And all of a sudden, everything she was delivering wasn't meeting standards. And she was constantly gaslit and undermined to the point she questioned her own ability to do the job. Yeah. And you're exactly right. And so what do you do in that situation? I think it's really important, first of all, to choose an organization that lines up with your values, where this type of behavior isn't tolerated. And then shifts happen, and being resilient and flexible and identifying it before it actually takes you down a path that makes it harder for you to recover and put your career in the track that you want. It's very important to identify early.
It is. Now, so with all of this, I mean, you've been relatively successful in your career. I don't think I've coached you well enough yet to reach your fullest potential, but you're getting there. I've had better luck with your daughters. I think that they're doing so well because of the influence that I had on them. But so you've got, you've been having to manage a career. While managing that career, you've held very senior positions, and you've got 3 very high performing kids, 2 of which are twin daughters that are also, they're very high performing, and they're both getting ready to go to medical school. How did you juggle all of these things? Because you had very high demanding jobs, high achievers in your kids, and they're all trying to take pieces of you. How did you juggle all this?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that, I've been fortunate in my career, and I've chosen jobs that allowed me flexibility, and career paths that allowed me flexibility, so that I had the ability to be able to step out when I needed to as a parent. And I was fortunate in that environment to be able to do that. The other thing is I actually took a different approach to parenting, which is a little unorthodox. And I really took much more of an approach of creating highly differentiated children. And there wasn't an option to helicopter parent. So there was a lot of them having to make decisions on themselves, which I deemed to be appropriate for their age. And it would vary. It would vary from time to time, but I was able to be there for them in a different capacity. I subscribe very much to something called Bowen theory, which is a systems theory approach, and they've been all indoctrinated in it from a very early age. And I think that definitely lent them to having a framework to have context for their environments, whether they're academic or social or professional.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Probably a lot of adults could use that, which is also quite funny because I recently did an episode on character building, and I used it's called Kelly Bear's CARES curriculum, which there's 12 pieces of this, and this is what they're teaching children. And I'm like, wow, just imagine if adults actually use this particular framework, and they kept going on, and they would be able to build a stronger character within themselves. And so it would be interesting if people would probably subscribe to that from a management perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of options and frameworks out there that give people different contexts to looking at the environments that they're in and if they're navigable. But I think it's important to understand what your options are within the environment, as far as having productive working relationships. And when there really isn't a path forward, what do you do? And where is your network? And careers are built after 5 o'clock. So it's important that in addition to your workplace environment, that you also create a network and an ecosystem that you can fall back into, that you can offset and balance your work environment with your network, and keeping both of them very strong, I think, is important. And understanding that is important, especially in this day and time of globalization and in technology in particular, where you and I have been.
Also true. I think some of the things that could be a challenge for those that have not grown up in the world of technology, or they're not a millennial, or they're not, a Gen Zer, in that they don't have a frame of reference to build relationships in a virtual world. Whereas the millennials and Gen Zers and those that have grown up with technology, I mean, talking about like the tech industry, we've had to make relationships with people before we've ever actually met them in person.
Right.
And that can be a challenge. Of course, if I were to take my first impression of when we met, and say that's the only thing that how you are, we probably wouldn't have continued with a professional and personal relationships, as you left us hanging for 3 hours.
Right, it's true.
This is why we have Julie Standard Time. There's Julie Daylight Savings Time, and the interesting thing is it changes all the time. Doesn't matter. Like there's no actual set. Like it's all based on Miss Holdren's mood as to what time she shows up. She really.
My goodness. If that were only true, the life of a consultant. It's interesting now because I work across. I'm a fractional chief product officer right now, as I was approached by multiple companies and all different development teams and offshore teams and stand-up teams and all kinds of different time zones and cultures and environments. And it's this whole virtual world has really changed a lot of things. How do you think it's changed workplace bullying, or has it?
I think it actually it has increased with many of. Yeah, I think it's increased in certain aspects, because what we have now is we have this highly charged debate of in-office, hybrid, and remote. And so those people that want more in-office, I think most executives would say they like this hybrid aspect, but they still want that face-to-face because it's that control piece. And so what happens is those people that want face-to-face, they are now talking to those that are even higher up in the hierarchy about all the problems that are happening because people aren't in the office. Now, and so it's that back talk, the talk that's happening in the back rooms. Oh, this person's not this person's not that, and then you don't get to hear, so to speak, the rumors to be able to address it until it's way too late.
You don't have the water cooler talk.
Right. And so what I advise some of my clients on that are going through some of these things is, look, you're you're either an aspiring to be in a in a leadership position, or you're trying to get higher up in the hierarchy. The onus is on you, as you kind of said. Relationships are kind of done after 5 o'clock. Yes and no. It depends on what you're trying to do, but I definitely understand where you're coming from, because it's about building that social capital. So those people that are in those remote positions, what I advise them is you have to start making more one-on-one calls and make them video. There's a lot of people, for whatever reason, are apprehensive to turn on their video when they're at home. I don't understand the psychology of it in a way, because it's not how I am. I go, this is my work environment, and if I was in the office, would I care if I was on camera? Well, maybe some people do, maybe they don't. But I'm like, look, if you're going to work remotely, then you need to find your safe spot to be able to turn the camera on, because these cues are still important for human interaction. And so you got to get out of that comfort zone. And so I tell them, start scheduling some more one-on-one meetings. Ask some of the people that are a little bit higher up and peers, and maybe the peers of your direct manager. Ask for virtual coffee. It's like, hey, can we do a virtual coffee? Hey, how about we get a virtual drink? You got to change your habits in order to get ahead of it. It's been very successful for me, and some of my clients that are doing this, it works. They've had more success, though, in the virtual coffees. That seems to be something that has been easier for them to get on other people's calendars, before the day starts, rather than after the day ends. Now, maybe that's also because those other people are also, maybe they're in a hybrid schedule, or they're also remote, but they haven't had as much success with the virtual happy hours.
Got it. That makes sense.
And then, you just got to talk to people. I've built relationships with people that have been almost in a complete virtual world. Jason and I didn't meet for almost a year in person, because of the way the doctorate program was. Our first residency wasn't until after year one, and we had already had several classes together. We spoke constantly, and it can happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. So every single one of the teams I'm working with right now is virtual. I've not met any of them in person, and that's been going on for the better part of a year. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's here to stay. I'm based outside the Washington, D.C. area right now, and I can tell you, unlike the New York City area, there really hasn't been a big impetus to get everyone back into the office here. A lot of the folks, government is kind of dictate what happens here, the vast majority of our workforce, and they are working remote. And so for a lot of reasons, childcare being one of them. So in order to keep a workforce going, I think there needs to be this flexibility. But then once again, there's a paradigm shift, and that's an interesting point you said, which is if you managing the narrative on disinformation or negative information is harder in an environment remote. That's an interesting concept. I hadn't really thought about it like that.
Well, it's things I've been thinking about quite a bit, and it's definitely interesting. So let's pivot over to what is it that you're doing as a fractional chief product officer. What's a company that you're pretty excited about? What are you doing? What kind of problems you all trying to solve?
So it's interesting. I'm an advisor to a company. It's called Mesh Communities, and they approached me through a mutual colleague of mine. I think they have great vision and thought leadership in an interesting space. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I've talked about it a little bit, which is the creator community, the author community, as they're saying it for people who are writing books, is the future. It absolutely is. Everyone's investing in the creator community. You even have like the Emirates, right, saying they want to be a creator economy and creating special visa status for creators. The question is, where are the platforms that support creators? And Mesh Communities is a platform for creators. It actually allows the creators to have communities, and those communities are governed, moderated, and the content in those communities is dictated by the community leadership. So in addition to that, in the future, those communities then select from a marketplace with of advertisers, and they can then select the advertisers, and then instead of the platform getting the advertising fund, that the community could choose to monetize their content or their community or their engagement or not, and if it's public or private, and they get to manage all those permission levels as well. So I'm pretty excited, both on the technology front and with trajectory, and I believe that this is the future, and it doesn't really matter if it's in the metaverse or how it impacts 5G. The fact platform doesn't. The platform is there to facilitate the communications and facilitate for monetization if the community is so interested in it. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like it's definitely an interesting concept. And, of course, with anything, it's how has monetization worked, and how does the platform itself make money? There's YouTube as an example, which a lot of people don't realize, that YouTube is either like I think I read something that actually YouTube it's either the number one or the number two search engine in the world, and Google.com is the other one. So Google owns the top two search engines, and Google makes money mainly by ads in terms of that, and so they want creators, and they want people to where they can serve ads and create content. They are, of course, taking in the majority of that revenue.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, what is that point where the platform that you're consulting for here, what's their split of the revenue? Because I think that's going to I think largely tell you whether or not it's going to be successful. Because if it's peanuts like YouTube.
No, the whole point is, not only the whole goal of this is to support the creator economy. So if you have a video collection or a photo collection or music, and you're a producer or you're a songwriter, you don't want to put on these platforms because you don't own it anymore. So now this creator community, you can create your own channel and community on Mesh networks. You own all the intellectual property and the content, and when the marketplace is rolled out, you get the vast majority of that revenue goes into your community, however you've defined it. So if you've got community and sub-members in your community, depending on what your audience is and how you're marketing it, it can go to a variety of things. You can use it for fundraising, you can use it for nonprofit. So I just think there's a collective audience out there that there's a paradigm shift where people are tired of their content being owned by the platforms. I just think that the world in the gig economy is focused on creators, and those creators are very interested in maintaining and owning their own content.
I tend to, I think that part is the very intriguing, piece to me, and that when because you're absolutely right. Like, once you upload that to, the, Facebook Live, Instagram, YouTube, they own it.
Correct.
And you actually sign away so they can kind of do, whatever they want with it. So then it's just a matter of, all right, well, what's, I mean, everything sounds very interesting. Of course, you got, the word's got to get out. It's a heavily competitive environment, but I don't think it takes long. I mean, how fast did it take? A lot of these different social media platforms, TikTok, which I am just not a fan of, at least not the United States version, because it seems like it's just people doing silly stuff. Whereas in other countries, because all the algorithms are a little bit different per country, depending on the country you're looking at, some of them are, giving higher views in the algorithm to like things that are educational and science and things like that. For whatever reason, in the United States, it's all about doing, silly stuff.
So, I mean, the whole point of this is community driven. This is grassroots driven. So if you want to be part of a specific community, right, you can invite your friends. If you've got a list of folks that you want to send out, if you're a content creator and you want to migrate onto this platform, that's also an option. But one of the things I found most promising is this week there was a shout out by an individual on Twitter, because of the communities are also moderated by the leadership there. And they said, I'm going to get off Twitter and on mesh communities where I have the freedom of speech and be able to post what I want within that community. So I just think that the world is looking at these social media apps through a different optic. And like, Dan, you're a privacy and security expert. Putting your, where would you put your content?
Where would I put my content?
Option to own it. Was it mesh an opportunity?
I mean, everything you're describing sounds extremely interesting to me. I mean, right now, the only place I have an option really is YouTube for the moment, right? In terms of being able to make, to be monetized. I mean, not that I'm knocking it out of the park right now, but
to prove the point. And who owns your content on YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube does.
YouTube does.
Yep.
Right. So I just think there's an opportunity now for those that are well informed and in the creator community to be able to find a platform like Mesh and be able to have their freedom of speech, their First Amendment rights, be able to own their content and be able to monetize it or not at their own discretion.
Well, and I think that's the important piece here, is that it's based on what they are choosing to do.
Right. So the creators of the communities are in control over what exactly they're doing, the privacy of their group, public-private groups, their privacy of their own profile, if they can be followed, if they can't, if they're accepting invitations. So it's really set up for the individual. It protects their privacy, protects their content, protects their intellectual property, and it gives them the freedom of choice. And I think that's the future. I'm pretty excited. I'm very excited about that application I'm working with right now.
Well, it definitely sounds very interesting, and and I have asked for early access. We'll see how it goes, because I like the concept.
Early access.
What's that?
Get early access for you, and you can give us your review next time. Love to get your feedback.
Yeah, I mean, it's
contributing and helping with multi-factor authentication and SSO, and we're helping to give us good thoughts on keeping it secure. So I look forward to that.
Yeah, and so right now, I mean, where is Mesh Communities at in the whole aspect of when are they looking to to officially go live? Because I mean, it sounds like right now they're in that pilot phase. At least that's what I'm at least feeling.
Yeah. So it's interesting. When I first started talking to them, they had such great adoption. They had to make it a closed. They had to make it a closed launch in their soft launch because they were flooding their servers. There was such great demand. And I'm like, well, that's a good problem to have. So they have a lot of the good problems to have, which is they create a lot of opportunity. Right now, you can download in the app on the App Store and iOS and Google, and would love to get your feedback on it. And You can request to be to create your own community. You have to have approval, but you can definitely become a user, subscriber, and anyone can reach out to me directly, and I'll get you set up or yourself, and we could start our communities. And very much look forward to getting the feedback, because this company is so open to being a market-driven company and feedback from the community to drive the platform and identify the features that make the most sense. And I'm very drawn to this philosophy because those make the best products. They're actually solving a real problem for the users.
It definitely sounds like it. So when are they planning on, because I'm just looking at the website itself. So how do people see content? Right now you have to get approved to be to be a user. Is that what it is?
So you can download the app right now, and you can log on, and then you can select communities that are open to follow and start joining the follow. And then once you get onto the app, and we can do a follow on this, once you get onto the app, you can request to be to build your own community, and then you can start your own community and invite members, and other members within Mesh can also find that. And it's meshcommunities.us. Yeah. So thank you for asking, and but definitely we'll do a follow back up with you, and you and I will be on there. I'll be chatting away.
Yeah, it looks like are they doing? It looks like from an investing standpoint, are they going for their own round of funding? Or are they kind of crowdsourcing this?
So I think it might be worth having a conversation with Jess, because I'm not involved in the funding. I know that they did receive a certain amount of funding already, and it's finding the right culture. I'm primarily on the product side, but yes, they have thousands of users on the platform right now, and growing strong and steady every day.
Very interesting.
Fantastic engineering, fantastic leadership. Their CTO is one of the most brilliant women I've ever worked with as a CTO in my career. So very excited on the engineering side as well as the business model.
Yeah, it sounds very, very interesting. That is for sure. Let's see. Yeah, well, I've requested early access. We'll see if I get it. So what else is going on in the world of Julie Holdren?
That's pretty much it. I'm working, advising some different companies, and working with behavior analytics and roadmaps, and pulling together product teams and some really hot and exciting companies in social media, ed tech space, wellness, and it's an interesting time to be in technology, because there's so much opportunity and so many tools available that you can put in that really put your product on steroids. Yeah.
Well, it's never a dull moment. Where is your next big trip going to?
I haven't quite figured that out yet. But I'll definitely be looking to you for input. I'll probably come out to visit you.
Hey, you're always welcome. Plenty of room out here.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Looking forward. When's the opening?
So the distillery will open in March, hopefully March of next year. I'm waiting to find out. We have to apply for an additional permit. There's some food requirements. I'm not sure how we're going to handle that part yet. My guess is I'll probably just contract out the food. I'll do whatever the bare minimum is. It's a distillery. I'm not looking to serve food. Like, I want people to come in to be able to do a tasting and get out. So, we'll see. We'll see what they wind up saying. Who knows? Could be anything.
Okay. Well, I hope that you're interested in. We'll set up a follow-up once you get in the mesh, and we'll get our communities going. And definitely we can get on there. And I'd love to get your thoughts and your audience thoughts on how we can make it the best community gig economy creator environment and platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm definitely going to check it out. Definitely going to apply. We'll see how it works as a creator. I've got X amount that I've done and continuing to grow, and we'll see how things work.
Yeah. And You'll be very welcome, Dan. And we'll create your own community, and we'll get it going.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is how. I mean, I don't know the answers yet in terms of like how the SEO aspect works, because today I can basically, also buy ads to promote my show and push people to that. I wonder how that part would work with this platform. Like, how would I wind up promoting it?
Correct.
Yeah. So I have to figure that part out.
So the folks that are putting volumes of content on, there's two different types of content. There is community-based content, right? Creator content, and then there's third-party content. So there are content providers that are from the music industry and photography industry. They're putting their content on there, and they have existing marketing channels, and they're inviting the groups that are currently following them on different avenues and are part of their email and CRM programs. They're giving them links to join Mesh and follow their community there right now.
Yes. So they've got their own media companies that are pushing people to those channels.
There are people with content who are very drawn to this type of platform, where they can maintain their ownership of their intellectual property and their digital rights, that are posting and putting the content on here in their channels that are pre-populated. And then there are end users, community-based content that's being put on there as well.
Very, very cool.
There's curated content, and then there's user content on both, because it's social media content, they have both of it, and this platform is no different.
It's very, very interesting. I'm definitely going to be checking that out. I invite everyone out there to check it out as well. It looks interesting. And maybe it'll be a platform that won't have. It'll start to go towards people that are looking to actually make a difference in the world, not just the number of bots that are out there today.
And that's really what it's about. It's about connecting with people over common interest, moderation, and being able to have a freedom of speech and rights put in there and moderated by that community.
Very, very awesome stuff. Well, Julie, it has been a pleasure. I thank you again for coming on. I'm glad we were able to catch up. I hope you'll choose to come be a regular. I talk about interesting things all the time, and maybe I can get you out here and we can do some more in-person ones.
Absolutely. I'll come out this summer, and we'll do our next one.
Yeah.
We'll get our community going on Mesh, and then get you and TK, and maybe we just start a nice chat session and get that going in our own channel.
Sounds great. All right, Julie, thank you so much, everyone.
Frozen,
yeah, you froze a little bit there for a moment, but that's okay.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, take care.